He did what no African leader had dared to do in decades. Captain Ibrahim Traore, the young lion of Burkina Faso, stood up not just to colonial puppeteers, but to the entire African political class. With one bold letter sent to all 54 heads of state, he delivered a call that should have ignited a continental fire of unity. Let us build an Africa for Africans. But instead of solidarity, what returned was silence, rejection, and behind the curtains, whispers of betrayal. Some even suggested he should be eliminated. This was more than politics. This was war. Not a war of bullets, a war of visions, a war between those who dream of a free Africa and those who serve the chains of neo-colonial power. That letter did not just expose opinions, it exposed alliances. It revealed which presidents still carry the hopes of their people and which ones have already sold them. Today we reveal their names, one by one, from the traitors who bowed their heads to the West to the brave few who stood tall beside Traore. This is not a gossip list, this is the front line of Africa's true battle, the battle for its soul. Have you ever felt your heart break, your eyes fill with tears as you watched Africa dry, cracked, and forgotten? Have you ever seen children with no clothes on their backs, scooping dirty water to drink their bellies, empty, their eyes sunken from hunger? Our parents work tirelessly day after day, yet they have never known the taste of a full meal. But we do not rise in anger. We rise in strength, in unity, in courage. Share this video so our voices can echo across the world. Let God witness our courage. Comment where you are watching from so we know that Africa is not forgotten. Like and subscribe to support the rise of a stronger, freer, and prouder Africa. It began with a letter, not written in arrogance but in urgency. Captain Ibrahim Traore, a leader forged in the fire of resistance, sent a message to every African president. It was not a demand, it was a plea, a call for unity, dignity, and African self-determination. In his words, we must stop fighting each other and start building for our people. Africa must belong to Africans again. This was not diplomacy as usual. This was a challenge to the status quo. For decades, Africa has been bled by foreign hands and betrayed by its own sons. Loans, coups, aid packages, none of it ever brought sovereignty. Traore saw through the illusion and called it what it was, dependency wrapped in generosity. His letter asked nothing more than a conversation, a summit of African leaders, to draft a shared vision for political and economic independence. To build roads, education systems, militaries, and media that serve African people, not foreign interests. It was a vision rooted in Pan-African ideals once dreamed by Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, and Patrice Lumumba. But what followed was silence. Or worse. When the responses came, they did not arrive with open hearts. They arrived with accusations, with rejection, with calculated distance. One after another, leaders across the continent dismissed Traore's invitation. Some claimed they could not work with an unelected leader. Others whispered that Traore was dangerous, a threat to stability, a radical. But for those who have studied Africa's history, these reactions are nothing new. When Patrice Lumumba called for unity, he was assassinated. When Thomas Sankara rejected IMF loans, he was betrayed from within. Today, Ibrahim Traore faces the same music because he plays the same song of liberation. Let us name the first among the rejectors, Paul Biya, president of Cameroon for over 4 decades. His refusal was expected. Biya's regime, long seen as a puppet of French interests, has done little to empower its people. Traore's message of sovereignty threatens leaders like him, not because it is wrong, but because it is righteous. Next is Teodoro Obiang Nguema, president of Equatorial Guinea. He declined Traore's call, and it is no surprise. Obiang appointed his own son as vice president, turning leadership into a dynasty while his people remain impoverished. Unity with Traore would mean accountability, and that is something these rulers cannot afford. Emerson Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe also declined. Though once hailed as a successor to Mugabe's nationalist ideals, Mnangagwa's silence signals a shift. Some suspect pressure from foreign financiers has dimmed his revolutionary fire. Alassane Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire responded not with diplomacy but disdain. His government, accused of complicity in destabilizing Burkina Faso, labeled Traore a threat to the region. When a man calls for unity and is met with accusations of subversion, you must ask who benefits from division. Felix Tshisekedi of Congo, another key figure, dismissed the letter. His government is deeply entangled with Western military interests. A united Africa would threaten those partnerships. So he stayed silent, as he often does when Congo bleeds. From Yoweri Museveni of Uganda to Ahmed Tinubu of Nigeria, the pattern repeated. These are leaders who enjoy stability built on external alliances. To them, Traore's revolution is not a dream, it is a threat. Some even went further. Julius Maadabayo of Sierra Leone reportedly said Traore must go home and stop whatever he is doing. Imagine that. A fellow African leader urging the silencing of another not because he brought violence, but because he brought vision. And so the list grows longer. Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa citing internal alliances. Abdel Fattah el-Sisi of Egypt with ties to Western arms and aid. William Ruto of Kenya, whose rhetoric of democracy fails to include African solidarity. One by one, presidents aligned themselves against the dream. Even smaller nations like Djibouti, Comoros, Lesotho, and São Tomé and Príncipe added their names to the chorus of rejection, their reasons vague. But in politics, silence is an answer, and rejection, even polite, is a declaration of allegiance. What unites these leaders? Many depend on foreign investment, military support, or trade deals dictated from outside the continent. Traore's call was not just for unity, it was for independence from those foreign powers. And that is why it scared them. Make no mistake, this was not about Ibrahim Traore's methods, this was about his message. Because that message that Africa should control its own future is a dangerous one for those who profit from her exploitation. And yet we must not judge too quickly. Some of these leaders may be trapped, blackmailed, or constrained by geopolitical forces. But whatever the reason, the result is the same: they stood against a united Africa. These leaders had a chance to be remembered as visionaries. Instead, history may remember them as obstacles. But in the shadows of betrayal, lights began to shine. Not every African leader turned away. A courageous few stepped forward and said, "Yes, we will stand with Traore. We will stand for Africa." The first to respond was Paul Kagame of Rwanda. Known for his fierce nationalism and strategic independence, Kagame praised Traore's courage and vision. He declared that the time had come for African nations to build without permission, to lead without apology. Then came João Lourenço, the president of Angola, who affirmed his support for regional cooperation that places African interests first. A man once skeptical of populist calls, he now sees in Traore not just a military figure, but a man speaking the truth too many fear. Gideon Duma Boko, the president of Botswana, added his voice to the cause. His endorsement, though quieter, was firm. Botswana, long admired for its democratic stability, now stands ready to explore a united African future. John Mahama of Ghana returned to the conversation with powerful words. Traore is not our enemy. The enemies are those who keep Africa divided, dependent, and degraded. His statement sparked youth rallies in Accra and Tamale, a sign that Traore's fire is spreading. From Senegal to Namibia, from South Sudan to the Gambia, the message was echoed. Enough is enough. Enough of begging for loans while our resources are stolen. Enough of fake peace talks while our people starve. Enough of presidents who fear the people more than they fear injustice. Déby Mohamed of Chad, Kais Saied of Tunisia, and Salva Kiir of South Sudan all added their support. Even Amadou Abdrahmane of Niger, despite international pressure, backed Traore's call for African-controlled governance. The support wasn't just political, it was symbolic. It reminded Africans that not all leaders have forgotten the dream, that the spirit of Sankara and Nkrumah still breathes not in boardrooms, but in bold decisions. These presidents may be few, but they are not alone. Behind them stand millions of Africans, from market women to students to soldiers, who are tired of the old ways. They do not want war, they want dignity. And in Traore they see a mirror of their own hunger for justice. But why would so many leaders reject a simple call for unity? Why would a vision of cooperation be met with suspicion? The answer lies not just in the words spoken, but in the shadows behind them. You see, many of these rejections were not authored in African capitals. They were shaped in embassies, in think tanks, in high-rise offices in Paris, Brussels, and Washington. Traore did not just disrupt African politics, he disrupted the neo-colonial script. For decades, African governments have been managed through debt traps, security dependencies, and controlled media narratives. Leaders who oppose that system, who speak of Pan-African sovereignty, often find themselves isolated, sanctioned, or removed. Some suspect that ECO once a hopeful tool for regional integration has become a gatekeeper for Western interests. Its swift condemnation of Traore's rise and its silence on foreign interference speaks volumes. Others point to intelligence operations, patterns of destabilization, cyber campaigns, and even assassination plots, all documented in past decades, now seem to resurface. It is not paranoia, it is pattern. Even the mainstream media plays its role. Traore is painted as radical, undemocratic militant. Yet the same voices call silent dictators partners in stability. This is not journalism, it is propaganda dressed in diplomacy. And let us not forget the resource map. Burkina Faso sits on gold, uranium, and other strategic assets. An independent, self-governing Burkina Faso is a threat to every foreign company that has exploited its land for profit. So when Traore called for unity, what many heard was danger, the danger of a continent that finally sees clearly, that finally chooses its own direction. Some of the presidents who rejected him may be compromised. Others may simply be afraid. Afraid of what might happen if Africa wakes up. If people realize that the power to change everything is already in their hands. There are whispers that threats were made behind closed doors, that offers were given financial or political to distance themselves from Traore. And perhaps the most disturbing whisper of all, that there are those willing to remove him by any means necessary. Yes, Africa has enemies, but the greatest enemy is not a nation. It is a system that rewards betrayal and punishes courage. That system has been shaken, and its response is panic. But here's what they did not expect. They did not expect the people to listen. They did not expect the youth to rise. They did not expect the silence of the palace to be drowned by the roar of the street. Traore's letter was not just a message, it was a matchstick. And across the continent, the fire is beginning to spread. Who is Captain Ibrahim Traore? To some, he is a troublemaker. To others, a savior. But to the oppressed, to the dreamers, to the people who have nothing left but hope, he is something more. He is a mirror, a reflection of everything the people wish their leaders would be: fearless, uncompromising, and loyal to the soil, not to foreign thrones. In the eyes of old powers, Traore is dangerous, not because of weapons, but because of ideas, because he has proven that leadership does not require permission, that sovereignty is not given, it is taken. They fear him not because he leads Burkina Faso, they fear him because he dares to lead Africa in a new direction. And yet, Traore is not a saint. He is a soldier, a strategist, a man navigating through the firestorm of politics, threats, and betrayal. But in his words and actions, we find something rare: intention rooted in justice and courage that does not bend. He is not just standing for Burkina Faso. He is standing for every African child who grows up with empty promises and stolen futures. This moment is more than headlines. It is more than alliances. It is a reckoning. For too long, Africa has danced to music composed elsewhere. But now the rhythm is changing. Traore's letter and the reactions to it have revealed more than positions. They have revealed truth. Truth about who stands with the people and who stands in their way. Let this video be more than information. Let it be an alarm, a call to every African, young or old, rich or poor, to ask a single question. Who truly serves you? Who will fight for your dignity, your freedom, your tomorrow? Because make no mistake, the battle is not over. The empire strikes quietly, through banks, through media, through silence. But now we know, and once you know, you cannot unsee. So speak, share. Let this truth travel faster than their lies. Let the streets of Lagos, the hills of Kigali, the markets of Bamako echo with one voice. We are awake, we are united, and we will not bow. Captain Ibrahim Traore may be just one man, but behind him stands a continent ready to rise. The question is no longer whether Africa will unite. The question is who will rise with it and who will be left behind. These are the heartfelt voices from across Africa sent to us. We invite you to listen. My name is Amina Diallo. I live in Kayar, a small coastal village in Senegal. Every morning I walk past the dry fields where my father once grew millet now cracked from the sun. I carry water on my head for miles like my mother did. And every night I look at the faces of my children and wonder, will their lives be different from ours? When I heard the words of Captain Ibrahim Traore, something inside me moved. It wasn't just hope, it was fire. For the first time in my life, I heard a leader speak not to the world, not to donors or diplomats, but to us, to Africans. His voice carried the pain of generations and the courage we have long buried beneath silence. He dared to say what we whisper every day, that Africa Rising is not a dream, it must be our reality. I have watched our leaders shake hands with foreign men while our hospitals have no medicine, our schools have no teachers, and our land gives us nothing back. I have seen my husband work from sunrise to sunset for a coin that cannot feed our children, and still we survive. But survival is not enough. We want to live. We want dignity. We want a new Africa, one where no child drinks dirty water, where our gold builds our roads, and where our leaders fear the people, not foreign banks. We want an Africa that teaches us about Sankara and Nkrumah, not just Shakespeare and Napoleon. We want an Africa that trades with itself, that feeds itself, that believes in itself. They may kill the dreamers, but they will never kill the dream. I am part of Africa Rising. My children are Africa Rising. And we will keep rising until the wind shifts and we become more than survivors. We become the builders of a new Africa. This is the dawn of Africa Reborn. My name is Kwame Mensah, and I live in Tamale in the northern region of Ghana. I am the son of a cocoa farmer, born into a land rich in soil, in spirit, and in sorrow. For years, I have watched my father's hands bleed to feed nations that do not know our names. I have watched our youth leave risking the sea because they believe there is no place for them here. When I listened to the message of Captain Ibrahim Traore, it was as if someone finally spoke the language of our pain. He did not promise charity, he promised awakening. He called on us to stand not as separate flags on a map, but as one family. And in his voice I heard what my ancestors must have felt when they dreamed of freedom. Africa Rising is not a slogan to me. It is my grandmother's tears. It is the silence of children in overcrowded classrooms. It is the hunger behind our smiles. And yet it is also the fire I see in the eyes of the young boys at the market, the women at the weaving loom, the farmers under the burning sun. I believe in a new Africa where our leaders are chosen by us and for us, where our languages, our culture, and our stories are celebrated, not erased. A new Africa where we build our own industries, write our own history, and take pride in the soil beneath our feet. They call us poor, but we are rich in resilience. They call us weak, but we carry generations on our shoulders. We are not begging for change, we are becoming the change. This movement, this vision, this unity, it is not just politics, it is Africa reborn. And I, Kwame Mensah, am part of Africa Rising. My village is Africa Rising. My children's dreams are Africa Rising. Let the world see the drums of our awakening are beating, and we are rising.